We have a lot of catching up to do. I hope to see you soon, Mama. Send video message.
Hey guys, my name is Mushroom. I have a lot of different names and I just really like lore. So, a lot going on with Sierra. We got not only her hero trailer, but her comic as well, so I'm going to be breaking that down. But also, I want to talk about everything we got with the Watchpoint Grand Mesa event in-game, because there's some cool confirmations to everything I talked about in the hero trailer. Since Season 2 has just kicked off, I have a lot of thoughts on this, so this will probably be a little bit of a longer video than usual. And, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe as we go through this. That kind of stuff really helps the channel and helps me see what you guys like. Now, something else I should mention is, this is probably going to be coming out a little bit later than I wanted it to. There's a lot of information that we have to get not only from interactions in-game, but also they're tying lore to in-game challenges now, so I had to play a good bit to get the second page for this week. There's going to be 4 pages to the Grand Mesa event overall, but I got the first 2, and we'll be talking about that towards the end of the video. There will be timestamps down below if you want to skip around and kind of just pick and choose what you want to listen to, but I'm going to be talking about the comic, Sierra, Kendra, and, of course, everything that kind of ties them together, and my thoughts on the comic first. So, let's go ahead and break that down. For as far back as Sierra can remember, it was always her and her mom, Kendra Woods. Her mother was constantly on the run from someone or something she never told her daughter about. Because of this, the two moved from place to place, with Sierra never staying long enough to make friends. As she grew, she felt distant from others, but closer to her mother. She excelled in school, her mother always by her side and supporting her the entire way. One day, on her 13th birthday, her mother vanished. Confused, Sierra followed the instructions that her mom had given her in case of an emergency. And the trail led to a familiar figure, but one she never truly knew. James, her father. He explained that long ago, Kendra went off the grid and started a family with him. They lived together for some time, until she vanished, taking their daughter with her. As Sierra grew, she never stopped searching for her mom, and the trail eventually led to a classified program, the SEP, or the Soldier Enhancement Program. To learn more, she had joined the system, and was recruited by Helix Securities, quickly rising through the ranks. Now, stationed at Watchpoint Grand Mesa, she's ready to uncover the truth of what happened to her mother, and what's behind the Naughton Vault. So, yeah, everything with Sierra has been pretty interesting in setting up a lot of new plot points for the game. I want to talk about Sierra for a moment first though. She's got a very bubbly personality based on interactions and kind of dev comments from before all of this, so it is a really kind of refreshing thing again. With the last wave of heroes, I think they did a really good job at making all of them kind of stand out, but Sierra as well does a really good job at kind of filling a new niche that we haven't had in a while, so it's really good to see and hear about this kind of new personality in the roster. I think she fits really well. Her interactions in-game are mostly her being pretty chatty with the other heroes. She does talk to the SEP survivors, Jack and Gabe, or Soldier and Reaper, but aside from that, nothing too insane on the lore front there yet. But we're probably going to be getting more about her and her entire story throughout this entire season. Now, on to a bit more of a juicy thing in the comic. Kendra Woods, Sierra's mom. She's a part of the Soldier Enhancement Program, or the SEP. This program was used by the US government to kind of make super soldiers akin to like Captain America, but in this program, there was a lot of survivors and a lot of people that we don't really know about. In fact, there was a lot of things going on with the program we just don't know about in general. 2 survivors we do know and knew of before all this were Reaper and Soldier 76, Soldier 24 and Soldier 76 respectively. These 2 were, of course, the big ones that we knew of for the SCP program. But now we get to know Sierra's mom was, of course, Soldier Zero, which is a pretty big deal. Kendra being Soldier Zero kind of implies and shows that she was the experiment or the test to really get this program off the ground. There's a lot you can break down with that in terms of a real-life perspective, but of course in the Overwatch world, this is a pretty big lore deal because now we're getting a little bit more of a snippet into how this program actually worked. Another key player to mention in the program is, of course, its creator, Victoria Naughton, which, as I mentioned in the hero trailer video earlier, is what the Naughton Vault is named after, which is in Watchpoint Grand Mesa. Another thing I do want to mention real quick with Kendra specifically is who exactly is after her. So in the comic, we get to see some Men in Black type characters that are looking like the CIA, kind of hunting her down. I think this would be a pretty plausible thing to say the US government is after her, and I do think that's one group that we could probably point to say they're probably after her to not only get the research that she is back, but maybe she took something with the program that the government wants. The other idea for who could be after her is, of course, the conspiracy. But with the conspiracy, I feel like there's a lot less to go on at the moment aside from, oh, it's the conspiracy. So I'm not going to be pointing too many fingers at that. In the comic, we do see that Sierra's mom just straight up vanished one night, so that does kind of scream conspiracy to me, but yeah, those are just two factions that could be responsible for all this. Now, on to everything going on with the actual in-game lore this season. So, the Watchpoint Grand Mesa event is a pretty cool little system they've made. They made a lot of cool menus for this, and we get a good look at the base. And while the challenges don't really have the cool flair that they had last season, we do have some other cool little bits and pieces of lore through the actual in-game lore drops. The first one of these is pretty self-explanatory and just explains what happened in the hero trailer. Basically, Sierra's trying to figure out what exactly Talon wanted from the Naughton Vault specifically. Since they hired Deadlock to be the distraction out front, Sierra wants to know what exactly Emery stole in the hero trailer. And with page 2, we get a hard confirmation of this. So I grinded a really long time for this on day 1, it threw my entire schedule off, but it was cool to finally get a confirmation of what Emery officially stole. Emery stole specifically a serum of the SEP program. This means Vendetta, and Moira specifically, since Moira is the one who wanted to go after this serum in Vengeance Comes, they'll be able to make their own enhanced soldiers most likely, or reverse engineer the serum to kind of mass produce it. This is a pretty big deal for a lot of reasons. Vendetta's army is already really strong, but imagine her gladiators with this enhanced serum. But also, this is just a huge power play and just solidifying Moira as kind of a character who's trying to force human evolution in a way. She wants to push humanity to their limit, and of course the SEP serum is something that Moira would have a keen eye on, so I'm interested to see what she's going to use this for. In the comic itself with Vengeance Comes, we didn't really get the vibe that Vendetta wanted Moira to do this, but more so that Moira proposed the idea and she desperately wanted Vendetta to kind of capitalize on this while she could, so it does seem like this is more of a Moira thing than a Vendetta thing, but Vendetta probably sees some use in it. So that's the pretty big reveal there. Of course, there's been some really cool interactions in-game that kind of go over little bits and pieces about how things are, but I do post all the interactions I find in the season at start over on the Overwatch Voice Lines account on Twitter, but also on my account on Twitter as well. I try to retweet as many as I can. So that's where you can go if you want to see some of those from me. But it does seem like Sierra and just kind of the general feel of the season is going to be figuring out exactly what Talon wants with the SEP serum, because they're going to be making their own soldiers, I guess. It is interesting that Project Naughton, as it's called, was at the Watchpoint Grand Mesa, because as far as we knew, the Watchpoint Grand Mesa was a storage facility for old Overwatch tech, but it seems like, with Helix watching over it, the government's kind of morphed a lot of old Overwatch bases into just general storage as well. This is a pretty interesting thing because it kind of shows that wherever there's a watch point, the government of that area probably is just taken over completely, kind of maybe holding over everything that's there. I am curious to see how exactly the world government's kind of distributed the different watch points across the globe, but yeah, just a cool little lore thing, and I wonder if we'll get any more on that. Another thing with Sierra, which this is going to be going into her bios that are on the website, the first one is basically about her comic, but the second one is a little bit more interesting. Summit Squad. Sierra was determined to track down her mother. With her father's support, Sierra doggedly pursued the only lead she had, but Project Naughton was highly classified. Whatever was left of the program had been transferred to Helix Security International, reportedly sealed away in a vault at Watchpoint Grand Mesa. Leveraging her unique physical prowess and exceptional intelligence, Sierra applied to work for Helix, and quickly found her place as a squad leader in Helix's perilous operations team, the Summit Squad, which specialized in missions in difficult terrain. Utilizing plasma weaponry and her trusty Roth unit, Dorothy, Sierra spearheaded rescue missions in narrow canyons, busted criminal operations in cave networks, and led her team to success atop the world's highest peaks. From dangers in the Grand Canyon to Niagara, there was no challenge too great for Sierra to take on. In just a few years, she earned a promotion to Watchpoint Grand Mesa, just as she had planned. Finally, she was a step closer to the truth. So, with this part in particular, there is some really cool things I want to point out. Specifically, the Roth unit, the Remote Operated Traversal Helper, it's supposed to be used for these kind of summit teams, which that makes a bit more sense and kind of fits with Sierra. We know a lot of her stuff. She was very athletic when she was younger, and she was intelligent, so her getting a drone and being assigned to the captain of this team in particular does make sense. Dorothy, I think, is a really fun thing too, because you can very much tell that the D, O, and Y are from Sierra, and she gave the little drone a little flair. I don't think this drone is quite as smart as something like Snowball with May, of course, but it does have that little bit of charm that I think gives a little bit of character to her. Another thing to mention too is Helix Security International. Helix Security kind of took over for Overwatch after the crisis, and they really expanded, taking over not only just random bits and pieces from across the globe, but pretty much every watch point they had at least a hand in, aside from the ones controlled specifically by world governments. So it is a little bit interesting that Helix is this wide to the extent that they have teams that are specifically built for summit stuff like this. It just shows how big Helix kind of is, since they have enough wiggle room to be able to make teams specifically for stuff in the United States, or in stuff like Atlas and Morocco, as an example. The other thing I do want to mention with her, of course, is Project None. As the head of security at Grand Mesa, the youngest in Helix's history, Sierra finally had access to classified documents. She learned that her mother, whose real name was Kendra Banks, had another moniker, Soldier Zero. As the first candidate of the Soldier Enhancement program, Sierra's mother had been subject to a series of experiments that had altered her body and given her uncanny abilities. Kendra's service after that point was poorly documented or redacted, suggesting that she defected from the program shortly after her procedure, and been in hiding ever since. Finally, Sierra's own miraculous strength and skill made sense, but her mother's whereabouts remained a mystery. So, another thing with the soldiers in the program is a lot of their abilities and stuff kind of formed in different ways. Soldier 76, of course, became more of your traditional super soldier, whereas Reaper did get a lot of that stuff, but had a lot of genetic issues as well, that Moira kind of expanded on later. So, with Soldier Zero, I am curious to see if maybe some of the procedures went wrong, or maybe Kendra's mom has something in her DNA or some kind of genetic thing now that the government really wants, and that could explain why exactly she's truly Soldier Zero and being hunted. But overall, this has been a lot of cool little lore on a lot of really cool small things in the world. We're going to be getting a lot of stories this season. I believe we're going to be getting 6 more, aside from these first 2, at least till mid-season, so that's a lot. And that's going to be a lot we're going to be able to talk about and probably explore going forward. I'll have another video up next week talking about the other 2 Lord pages, if they have enough really juicy stuff in them, which, knowing this stuff, they probably will. A lot of the mystery of this is probably going to be wrapped up, but we're going to be getting a lot of answers to things and a lot of ongoing mysteries as the year goes on. So I'm interested to see what gets wrapped up and what continues. But yeah, what did you guys think of everything I mentioned in this video? A lot of stuff and a lot of information I'm mentioning here, so yeah, it's a lot. Did you guys enjoy everything with Sierra, and are you hooked? Do you wish there was a little more? Do you think there were certain characters that should have been involved that aren't? And of course, what do you guys think overall about the new season? I love reading your guys' comments, and I'm excited to see what you guys have to say about this one. Anyways, that's all from me. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!